multiple international certifications. He is also the co-founder of NextGen Knowledge Solutions Private Limited. He has over 30 years of quantifiable experience in an industrial and professional working, accounting, internal audit, information systems audit, digital financial reporting as well. He's working as functional consultant on projects for implementation of digital task administration systems, e-invoicing system, big data analytics for regulators with the leading technology companies in India and GCC countries. He was also involved in development of a tax analytics tool that can aid in making business decisions relating to import of goods. He is also the co-author of paper titled A Field Study Examining the Indian Ministry of Corporate Affairs, XBRLM, Implementation, published in Journal of Information System. Vinod, he regularly speaks on digitalization of taxes, tax analytics, and blockchain in national and international conferences and workshops. He has made a presentation on digital task administration system in 41st World Continuous Auditing and Reporting Symposium that was held in Spain in 2017. He also made presentation on digitalization of tax administration system for VAT in Kuwait back in 2018. He was also invited by the American Accounting Association to speak on RegTech in India in the 9th Transformative Technologies Workshop in 2018 in Washington, D.C. Vinod is also invited as a speaker in World Blockchain SDO Summit to be held this month, October 21st and 22nd, 2019 in Dubai, and in Global Blockchain Summit to be held in also November 2019 in Manama. He was also invited to speak on demystifying blockchain at the 14th CFO Leadership Summit held on March the 20th, 2019 in Bengaluru. He's a faculty at National Academy of Customs, Indirect Taxes and Narcotics, Mumbai, where he was invited to speak on digital task administration system for GST on October back in 2017. His session was highly appreciated by the participants. He was also invited by Nasim Mumbai to speak on data analytics in GST on April 2018. He also conducts workshops on digitalization of taxes and blockchain, DLT, in India on a regular basis, which are attended by CFOs and senior finance executives. Vinod, thank you very much for making time in your busy agenda to share with us your knowledge on blockchain. I'm sure all of us will benefit from the information you will present today. Without further ado, please join me in welcoming Vinod Kashyap.
Thank you, Natalie.
Okay, go ahead. Windows.
Yes, please allow me a few seconds to share my screen.
Not yet. Okay.
Is my screen visible now?
Yes. Easy.
Okay. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. First of all, I would like to thank Mario for providing this opportunity to share a few thoughts on impact of blockchain on accounting and auditing. Am I audible? Mario, am I audible? Voice is clear?
Perfect. Go ahead.
Okay, thank you. Friends, our agenda for this 45-minute session will include, first of all, a brief introduction about blockchain, then impact of blockchain on accounting, impact of blockchain on auditing. I'll also cover up briefly on blockchain audit approach on blockchain validation software. And in the end, I'll try to discuss something about opportunities, which I am sure will be of interest to all of you. So let us start with the introduction to blockchain. I am not sure how many of you are familiar with blockchain technology or know about the basics. So I'll try to spend few minutes on explaining what exactly is blockchain, how does it work, what all are the blockchain ingredients, what all constitutes the blockchain ecosystem. Let us first try to understand what is blockchain. Blockchain is basically a decentralized ledger. See, we all are familiar with centralized ledger, and I can give one example to explain you what is the meaning of centralized ledger. Then you can try to, you can correlate with the decentralized ledger. For example, today I have to make a payment to Mario. I have to transfer some funds to Mario. How do I make the payment is I go to my bank, give payment to my bank, then my bank transfers. Mario has got account in same bank, then what will happen is bank will transfer money from my account to Mario's account. And then bank will keep a record of transfer of fund from my account to Mario's account. So this is a centralized ledger which is keeping a track of transaction both for my account as well as Mario's account. As opposed to this, in case of decentralized ledger, the transaction details will be available with both Mario and me. And here we are talking about two people, and this is true for say 100 people, 200 people. So now you can understand the meaning of decentralized ledger. So blockchain is basically a decentralized ledger of all the transactions which have happened in the network. Using blockchain technology, the participant or the computer nodes with the computer nodes in the network can confirm the transaction without the need of trusted third party. Third party in today's case or in case of a centralized system is the bank, which is providing trust to both the parties. Now, if you look at the screen, I'll try to explain you giving this picture how the blockchain works. For example, if somebody has to do a transaction, what he will do is he will submit this transaction to the all the network. So all the participants in the network, all the computer nodes which are connected in the network, they will get this, get the details of this transaction. Then these computer nodes which are connected on the network, they can either agree based on the algorithm. Algorithm may provide that 51% of the participants should approve the transaction, then only it is through, or say 2/3 of the majority should approve. Based on the algorithm, the transaction is approved by the computer nodes or the participants in the network. Once the transaction is approved by the network, then the transaction is complete and it becomes a block, and it is added to the block of chain which is already there. So that is the reason it is called blockchain, because it will have previous transaction also as well as the current transaction. How blockchain works in practice. Blockchain ecosystem consists of distributed ledgers. Distributed ledger means all the participants in the network who are connected to each other directly, they all have the ledger of the transaction which have taken place in the network between the participants. Then another important ingredient of blockchain ecosystem is the cryptography. It uses cryptography, PKI system, public key infrastructure. The public key and private key, they provide the one is the encryption, and it also establishes the identity of the person using the private key and public key system for identification purpose. Third important constituent of blockchain ecosystem is consensus. As I've explained while I was discussing about in the previous slide, that the participants who are connected in the network, they can either approve the transaction or disapprove the transaction, reject the transaction. In case they approve, then this approval is based on the algorithm which is provided in the blockchain ecosystem. So there is a consensus of majority of persons. Majority of persons may consist sometimes say 51% or 2/3 majority or even 3/4 majority, because at the moment there is no standard on this kind of consensus. In fact, International Standard Organization is working on developing the standards for blockchain ecosystem. Another important term which is commonly used in a blockchain ecosystem is the smart contract. Smart contract are basically the algorithms which activate some transaction, which activate further action on the transaction, on the happening or not happening of an event. I'll give you one example to explain the smart contracts. See, in today's situation, for India, it is certainly true, and I'll give the example of our Indian situation. In case of transaction of any shares in a company, we have got one is stock exchanges where the transactions, buyers and sellers can do transaction. Then the participants have got their depository account with the share depositories. So shares are in demat form. So this transaction is completed in say 2 stages. In one stage, when a seller offers his shares for sale at a particular price, and stock exchange finds out a willing buyer of those shares at that price, then the transaction is made and a contract is completed between the buyer and the seller. But then the second portion of the contract is the delivery of share from the seller to the buyer. That happens through second action for which seller needs to take an action. But in case of smart contract, what will happen is the second portion of action will be automated. For that, the requisite will be like both buyer and seller should be on blockchain, security should be on the blockchain. Then by using a program, shares will automatically get transferred from seller to buyer by once the transaction is matched. This is known as smart contract and very commonly used in blockchain ecosystem. Now, what does this blockchain ecosystem means for your organization is that data will be available to the organizations on a near real-time basis. And then, though they need to take a call on yes or no, or make a decision within a very short time, and it will also mean that those transactions, because these transactions will be very large in numbers, so they cannot be checked by human beings, and some sort of software will be required for auditing these transactions. Now, when we are discussing about the basic of blockchain, we also need to touch upon briefly what advantage blockchain provides. In fact, blockchain is considered as one of the most disruptive innovation of fourth industrial revolution, and as the other emerging technologies in fourth industrial revolution, blockchain is also expected to bring disruption in many industries, and primarily it brings disruption in financial services industry. Blockchain, what are the advantages of uses of blockchain? I have tried to briefly put over here. One is it uses consensus. So because, as I have explained in the first slide, that every block consists of consensus of participants in the network. So people who are part of the network, they approve the transaction. Second is it is immutable because it is using cryptography PKI system. Digital signatures are being used. PKI system, private key and public key system is being used. But it is transparent because the transaction ledger are available with all the participants in the network, all the computer nodes in the network. It is encrypted. We are using cryptography in blockchain. Third, it is distributed. Ledger is not centralized to any particular person. Ledger is distributed to all the participants, all the computer nodes which are connected in the network. Now, let us briefly discuss about the applications of blockchain. Blockchain finds its use in all the areas wherever where there is a there is e-commerce transaction. Broadly, we can classify that wherever digital currency finds usage, it finds application. For example, e-commerce, global payments, remittances, P2P lending, microfinance. Then second is in record keeping, where we need a high level of trust. Blockchain provides a solution to that. This high level of trust is required in case of healthcare or medical records, title records of land or buildings, ownership of any property, voting rights, or intellectual property rights. Then it also finds application in smart contracts, and a smart contract find uses in escrow, wages, digital rights, and last, securities market. All kind of securities can be covered in blockchain ecosystem. This could include equity, private market or primary market, debt market, crowdfunding, or derivatives. I have tried to briefly explain you in 10-15 minutes about what actually is blockchain. Now we can proceed with impact of blockchain on accounting. We all are familiar with double entry accounting system. Double entry accounting system was given by Luca Pacioli uh, almost a century before, and from there we started making a double entry bookkeeping system. And double entry system means records are kept by two persons, and in case of blockchain there will be one more ledger in addition to two parties who are involved in the ledger, in the transaction. The third ledger will be public book, which will be available to all the participants on the network, and these books will be self-balancing. And in this slide, if you can see, I have tried to show this how these are self-balancing ledger. Now here you see Bob's book, which has debit as well as credit. Then Alice books, debit as well as credit. And now the net effect of this is shown in the public book. And these books are self-balancing books. In fact, this is talked about as triple entry bookkeeping system. Now, after discussing briefly about the impact of blockchain on accounting, let us try to see how blockchain will impact auditing. One of the basic ingredient of blockchain is that it provides a high level of trust to the transaction. Transactions are immutable. There is a chain of, there is a evidence available on the chain, blockchain. Now, does that mean that it is the end of audit? Will auditors be out of job? That is a question which is being discussed today at various platforms. And the answer to this we will discuss in subsequent slides. People, including some of the accounting bodies, have been talking that the blockchain concept will change the entire auditing process. Third-party verification will not be required when the data is converted to the blockchain. And in such a situation, they say the certification from auditor will not be required. But as per our view, this is not the correct view. As long as the judgment and manual decision making and entries are part of the processes leading to business reports, auditing will be necessary. Blockchain helps in improving the reliability of audit trails and reconciliation, but it is just the starting point of the audit. It is not the end point of audit. The end point of audit is expression of opinion by the auditor on the financial statements of an entity. That expression of opinion is both on the balance sheet as well as profit and loss account. The blockchain involves technology, new area. For doing the audit in new area, we require new skill sets. In fact, IFAC has come out with a survey to find out what should be IFAC focusing on, what should be the future strategy of IFAC to help the auditor, to help the accounting bodies all over the world. That survey has already been over, but I'm not sure how many of you have participated in it. I have participated in it, and I have suggested that IFAC should come out with a guidance note, guidelines on two areas. One is on the audit of XBRL financial statements, financial reports which are converted into XBRL form, or which is also known as digital form. Second is IFAC should also come out with a guidelines on how to audit blockchain ecosystem, because blockchain ecosystem will involve a lot of technology in accounting, as well as the way the transactions are presented, the way the audit will be done. So it will be good if there is a standard laid down by IFAC. We can expect some guidance notes, some guidelines from IFAC in near future on this. In fact, there was a media report, Wall Street Journal provided, that how distributed ledgers are considering our audit assertions which we normally use in audit reports, whether they are enhancing the benefit by use of distributed ledger or blockchain technology, or it does not affect in a positive way on the audit report. So some of the assertions which they have mentioned in the table, for example, we provide an assertion on completeness of financial statement, financial record. Yes, it enhances. 2 ticks means it provides a medium level of enhancement. 3 means high degree of occurrence of any transaction within the financial statement, whether they've happened or not. It provides very high level of assurance. Valuation, it is almost at par. Classification and understandability, that is also at par. Accuracy, it provides whether the data is recorded and correct amounts which are verifiable in source document. It provides medium level of assurance. Rights and obligations, correctly establishing the right to use or dispose of assets as well as obligations to pay off liability. It provides a same level of assurance. Cut off, recording of transaction for the current accounting provide, it provides a very high level of assurance, because in blockchain there is a timestamp of each transaction. Timestamp will include hour, minute, as well as seconds. In fact, I do cover how this block is made and what all this block consists. That I cover in the basics of blockchain, and that is 1.5 hour session, 1.5 hour session, where I try to explain how the blockchain ecosystem actually functions and what does it block consist of, how does this hashing function takes place, and how this timestamp is put on the blockchain, how this data is, how this transaction is immutable, how the digital identity is established. Here, due to time constraint, I have tried to briefly cover those things in first 15 minutes of my presentation. Now let us move forward to what should be the blockchain audit approach. See, an enterprise needs will change, and there will be many new challenges when the enterprise uses a blockchain system, ecosystem. First of all, the volume of transaction in case of blockchain will be very high. So sample based or point in time approach will not suit. Our traditional audit approach is suitable for hard copies of records, because it is, first of all, it is a point of time, it is more of forensic in nature. We use sample based techniques to do audit of financial transaction, and based on those samples we try to express our opinion on financial statement. So it is speculative in nature. We select a sample of say 1% or even say less than 1%, and then we try to apply that result to entire mass from which the sample has been selected. The nature is speculative in nature. It's subjective population results. This kind of traditional audit approach will not be suitable for transactions which are put on blockchain ecosystem. And then there will be technological challenges because blockchain, all the transactions will be in digital form, and those transactions will not be visible by say human eyes. We need to use computer systems to read it and to test it. Now, what will be required in this case is one is an end-to-end auditing approach. An end-to-end auditing approach means there will be on-demand reporting whenever there is a need. Because see, one thing you should understand is in case of blockchain, if it is adopted by for a payment system for a bank, then there will be thousands of transactions which will take place say within an hour, and during one day there will be over a lakh of transaction, over 100,000 transaction. Is it possible for a human being to verify such transaction at the end of the financial year? The answer is no. Then we will be needing is a continuous audit approach. And along with the continuous auditing approach means as soon as the transaction happens, it is validated by a software. We'll be using software to test this transaction. Then it will not only be the audit of the transaction, we will also require to audit the blockchain ecosystem. Blockchain ecosystem means, for example, I have discussed about consensus mechanism, which is an algorithm. I mean, one company may provide that algorithm will use say 51% of consent. Another company may provide say consensus will require say 66% majority, and the third company may require 75%. Another company may also require say 99%. But an auditor need to verify it. And then second is whether this consensus algorithm is applied consistently or it is changed from one transaction to another transaction. He needs to audit the entire blockchain ecosystem. Now, blockchain audit approach, see, our basic principles of auditing will not change. Basic principle of auditing will remain changed, but it will be applied differently. Tools and techniques which will be used for auditing blockchain ecosystem will be different. Our basic approach to any audit is first of all to make an assessment of the environment in which we are auditing, to make an assessment of risks which are involved in it, and then to identify the controls which are working over there, test those controls. If those controls are working, fine. If those controls are not working, then what do we need to do? We need to do substantive test. And here, these all principles, basic principles of auditing will be applied to blockchain ecosystem also, but in a different manner. And I have tried to pick up some of those points from from a paper which has been published by PwC, that includes first of all check about governance and oversight. The whole network layer. Network layer means we need to access, because most of these all these transactions will be on cloud based. So in cloud, what all security is provided? What is the data security, data privacy, penetration testing? So this will require some basic IT skills also. Then comes the blockchain layer. That also needs to be tested on various areas which are put over here. And due to constraint of time, I can't discuss every aspect of this in detail, but broadly I'm trying to cover up. Then comes the decentralized protocol layer, blockchain ecosystem, and application layer, which is the final layer. And there we also consider, for this, knowledge of information systems audit will be quite useful. And people who are lacking in knowledge of information system, IS audit, IT audit, they will find difficult to work along with blockchain ecosystem. My suggestion to our professional friends will be to get a basic knowledge of how accounting information systems work, or in case in your country, if you have got some information systems audit course, which is say equivalent to CISA, which is provided by ISACA, that will be very helpful in this. I have done such course from our Institute of Chartered Accountants in India, and I can understand these things very easily because these things are discussed in detail. It is part of the curriculum over there. Now, blockchain continuous auditing risk framework will, first of all, we need to identify the risk. For identifying the risk, the basic criteria is simple. You need to make an estimate of how these technologies are working, how this program has been designed, whether this program are, you know, applied consistently, or somebody has an access, somebody can modify this program, this change, whether everything is documented or not, what are the objectives of this, basic business objectives for which blockchain system is used, that is very important, and whether these objectives are being achieved by using of the use of this technology or not, that auditor need to understand. What is the scope of the work over here? That scope of work comes from the person who is appointing the auditor, and then there everything will be defined, like what all the audit, what all the entity wants the auditor to look into. One thing you will notice that with blockchain there will be a fundamental shift in audit philosophy. Our To understand this, I have tried to put some bullets in what is our current audit philosophy and what will be our future philosophy. See, our current audit is point in time, means the auditor audits the financial statements of an entity after the close of financial year. As opposed to this, in future, because blockchain, when blockchain is used, the audit will be on a real-time basis. Means as soon as the transaction is complete, as soon as the transaction is done, its audit will also be done. Current state of audit is more of forensic in nature. Forensic in nature means we try to correlate the transaction with documentary evidence. As against this, the future state will be of inherency, how the past transaction was done, how the current transaction is done. The current state is retrospective in nature because we look at the end of the financial statement, then we look at the beginning of the financial statement, and we try to see what all transactions have taken place between two dates and try to audit those. So the current state is retrospective in nature. As against this, the future state or the audit of blockchain will be, one is immediate. Immediate means as soon as a transaction happens, the auditor will be auditing that transaction using certain software. Continuous auditing software or tool will be used. And in addition to this, there could be use of predictive analytics also in this. So the audit will more be in the nature of, one is immediate, second is predictive in nature. Predictive in nature to stop happening of some unwanted transaction or transaction which is not in accordance with the rules or business rules which have been laid down. The current state of audit is based upon sample. We don't audit in case of large entities, we don't audit 100% transaction. We try to pick up a sample which represent the mass, and try to audit that sample and then try to apply the result of that sample to the entire mass. As against this, in case of future, it will be full population audit. Because if the software has to do audit, because software computer systems have, they have got very high capability. If they can do 10 transactions, they can do 10,000 transactions also. So in future, the transaction will audit will be of full population, not of sample. The current state is speculative in nature because what we are doing is we are testing a 1% sample, or say even less than 1% sample of full population, and then we are applying the result of that test sample test to the entire population. Our approach is more in nature. But in future, since we are doing full population audit, it will be macro level trending we'll be trying to identify. The current state is subjective population result, but the future will be objective population result, because when we are testing 100% transactions, our results will be more accurate. Our results will be more objective in nature. Now, as I have discussed, like in blockchain, suppose it is a payment system, it is a currency system, it is a system which is adopted by a bank. There will be thousands of transactions which will take place in blockchain ecosystem within an hour. And by the end of the day, there will be millions of transactions, or if not at the end of the day, during a month itself, there will be millions of transactions. So it will not be possible by the auditor or a human being to do this audit of these transactions. Then what we'll need is we need a blockchain audit software or blockchain validation software. Now, one of the big four has come out, announced that yes, they have got this software ready, PwC, and PwC's blockchain validation software. I have tried to put what all it constitutes. I'll try to explain in the next 10 to 15 minutes. I am running a little short on time. I've already completed about 25 minutes. I have another 10 minutes. So within 10 minutes, I'll try to cover this briefly about blockchain validation software of PwC. First of all, it will be auditing the transactions which are happening on blockchain on a real-time basis. Second is this blockchain audit software or the validation software will be incorporated in the blockchain ecosystem itself. So the audit system will be inbuilt. It will be providing immediate report on exception basis, and it will also provide some predictive analysis of transaction which could go beyond business rules in future. It will test full population as against the sample test which we do in our traditional audit. It will do macro level trending by spotting the trend, which side the trend is moving, upward, downward, and last is it will be providing objective results, which can be ranked. Then how to validate blockchain transactions? The blockchain will consist of blocks of various transactions. Each transaction will have a block in itself. Now, how this will be validating? It will be, first of all, there will be a risk assessment. The basic principle of audit will be applied here also. The risk will be assessed by the system. Depending upon nature of organization, the system will make an assessment of what all risks are involved with that organization, what all controls are there, controls are applicable, and then some customization of software will be required for each organization. See, each organization work in different environment. Its requirements may be different from one entity to another entity. So the software will require some fine tuning, some customization, depending upon the needs of a particular organization. And auditor will be provided a computer node within the blockchain ecosystem, and there he will have right only to read. He will not have rights to write any transaction. What he can do is he can view all the transactions which are happening over there. System will be doing validation of the transaction and preparing an exception report for the auditor. What auditor will be doing is he will be reviewing that exception report, and from there he will be keeping specific transactions, and then for those specific transactions he'll be looking into detail in blockchain ecosystem. So what he will need to do is he will be required first of all to look at the logs, whether the transaction have passed the validation test. If the transaction has passed the validation test, it is fine. He need not look into it. If the transaction has not passed the validation test, it will be included in this exception report. So we'll be looking at this flag transaction or the exception report. Now users will be reviewing the reports, customized dashboard. Dashboard will be providing, say, graphics of how the transactions are happening, or say different variations, different exceptions which fall into different categories. And by using visuals, he can easily go and drill down and go to the depth of the transaction. With the happening of the transaction, with the passage of the transaction, auditor will also learn something about how the system is functioning, how the validation tool is functioning, and he will he will learn something from his experience, and he can refine his approach for future test of the transaction. Now I'll try to briefly touch upon the opportunities which are there for accountants in blockchain technology. The auditors will find role in, say, one is auditing of smart contracts and Oracle. Smart contracts I have discussed in the first slide itself while explaining the basic of blockchain. So he need to ensure that yes, first of all, the smart contracts are working according to logic, and then that logic is in accordance with the contract which is between the parties. That he will be required to look into. Second is, in case there are, say, more than one network, so auditor will be looking at, say, different networks. Say, for example, there are, say, 2-3 different banks. Each bank has got its own network, so there will be a consortium. So auditor will be looking, auditor will be looking at the network of all these entities which are part of the consortium. One more role which will be there for accountants or chartered accountants is to function as administrator of blockchain network. For all blockchain networks, there will be, see, there are two kinds of network. One is open network, another could be, say, private network. And the role of administrator will be more for, say, private network where the entry is restricted. Entry is allowed by the administrator, and there chartered accountants who have got, say, additional skill set, they need to add some new skill set, and with the new skill set, they'll be able to function very well. They will be able to perform their duties as administrator of network. Now, that was a brief presentation about impact of blockchain on accounting and auditing. Now, friends, if you have some questions, I can take up few questions. You can one by one. You can ask question. I'll try to answer it.
Vinod, thank you very much for making time in your busy agenda to share with us your knowledge on blockchain. I'm sure all of us will benefit from the information you presented today. If you have any questions, please type them in the chat. ¿Qué preguntas tienen? Por favor, escríbanla en el chat. Vinod tiene espacio para responder dos preguntas.
Aprovechemos y recuerden que son más de las 12 de la noche en la India, así es que Vinod está haciendo un esfuerzo especial. Muchas gracias.
Friends, I'll request somebody to translate it in English for me. Mario,
Yes,
can you do it?
we're asking the participants to type in the questions that they have in the chat because we know it's already past midnight in India. So we want to keep it short for you. Thank you very much again for the effort and the time.
Well, no question.
Okay, Vinod, so apparently we don't have any questions in the forum. Again, thank you very much for your time. We appreciate the effort of staying past midnight to share this knowledge with all of us. I'm sure the participants will probably have questions moving forward. If they have any and we cannot answer them, we'll send them through you. Thank you very much for all of your time.
Thank you. Bye.
Thank you. Have a good night.
Thank you so much.
Good night. Bye.
Thank you. The same to you.
Thank you, Mayo.
You're welcome. Okay. Thank you very much, Vinod, for your participation and for sharing this current and excellent information. Bueno, muchas gracias a todos por su participación. Mañana hay otra conferencia, pueden ver el programa, el sábado también hay otra. Nuevamente, muchas gracias a Vinod por su participación, su esfuerzo, su compromiso con la profesión mundial. Está a más de medianoche en la India y eso es un gran esfuerzo. Por favor, si le puedes traducir, Nathan.
Vinod, again, thank you very much for the effort and your professional commitment to this and sharing everything that you know. We really appreciate the time you've taken. We have taken some time off your spare time at night, maybe with your family. So thank you very much again for the time and the knowledge shared tonight with us. We really appreciate that.
Thank you, Natalie. Good night.
Good night. Muchas gracias a todos. Nos vemos mañana. Muchas gracias, Vinod. Thank you, Vinod.